Welcome to the introduction to Form 8843 workshop. My name is Dia Gully, and if you email or call OIS regarding tax matters, I'm probably the person that you're going to be speaking to or is going to respond to your email. Now, I am not a certified tax expert, and that's the reason when you contact OISS, we cannot provide specific tax advice about individual tax situations, but we can help you figure out where to go for help. So, who needs to submit Form 8843? Basically, all international students and scholars. If you are in the US under F1, J1, F2, or J2 status, if you were present in the US during 2022 for 1 day or more, and if you are a non-resident alien for tax purposes, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute, if you meet all three of the criteria listed on the slide, then you need to submit Form 8843. Even if you don't need to file an income tax return, you do need to file Form 8843. Now, who is a non-resident alien for tax purposes? Well, if you have an F visa, you're considered a non-resident alien for tax purposes for the first 5 calendar years in the US. And if you have a J visa, you're considered a non-resident alien for tax purposes for 2 out of the last 6 calendar years in the US. So who is this workshop for? This workshop is specifically for people who need to complete only Form 8843 for the 2022 tax season. If you were present in the US during 2022 for 1 day or more, or if you are a non-resident alien for tax purposes, and most importantly, if you are in F or J visa status with no taxable income from US sources, then you only need to submit Form 8843, no other tax documents. If you had any taxable US income in 2022, then this workshop is not for you, and I don't want to waste your time. Did you work for Tulane? Then you'll use Glacier to prepare your tax forms, and that includes, your tax forms include Form 8843. If you worked somewhere else, not Tulane, or you have a taxable scholarship, then you have several options. The easiest is probably SprintTax. And it will also prepare your Form 8843 when it prepares your other tax documents. Now, for either of those, you can find information on the OISS website on the tax information page, but we won't be addressing any of those questions in this workshop. If you have questions, send an email to oiss@tulane.edu, or just look on the OISS website, oiss.tulane.edu, and go under quick links and resources, and you'll find the tax information page. So what is Form 8843? Although it is submitted to the IRS, Form 8843 is not an income tax return. It's just an informational statement. And what it does is document the number of days you spent outside the US. So now we're going to go over a few tips for completing Form 8843. If that's the only thing you have to do, which parts do you fill in? Now, this PowerPoint will be on our website, and after you download the form, go back to these slides when you're filling it out, just to see which parts. So if you're a student in F1 or J1 visa status, then you'll complete Part 1 and Part 3. Scholars, J visa status, complete Part 1 and Part 2. F2 and J2 dependents complete Part 1 and then the same section as the primary visa holder, 2 or 3, whatever they did. Even if you are not required to file a federal tax return, you must mail a paper Form 8843 to the Internal Revenue Service Center in Austin, Texas. We'll give you that address later, by June 15th, 2023. Okay. So here is Form 8843. So as you can see, the highlighted parts are the parts that people are going to fill in, the personal information at the beginning, and Part 1, everybody fills out. Part 2, J1 scholars, people with a DS 2019 and scholar status. Part 3, F1 and J1 students. So anyone who has an I-20 or a DS 2019 and is in student status. So here's just a closer look at the beginning, the parts that everyone completes. So at the beginning, you see where it says name. It asks for your first name, initial and last name. Just fill it in the same as your name appears on the passport. In the next box, it asks for your U.S. taxpayer identification number, if any. It is not necessary to have a Social Security number or a tax identification number. If you have one, fill it in. If you don't, just leave that part blank. Address and country of residence is just your home address in your home country. Address in the United States is your current residential address. Now, under Part 1, general information, what you want to do to fill out this part is to print out your I-94 history, not your current I-94, but just search for Get I-94, and one of the tabs will say I-94 history, and that's the official record of all the times that you have entered and left the US. And then with a calendar, you're going to just count days. So at the beginning, when it asks for the type of US visa, whatever visa you're under, and the date that you entered the US in 2022. And then it's going to ask you in 4A, enter the actual number of days you were present in the United States during 2022, 2021, and 2000. Use your I-94, count the days. 4B, when it says enter the number of days in 2022, you can claim, you can exclude. For most people, that's just going to be the same as you entered for 4A. But remember, you can only exclude those days that you were in the country under F or J status. So if you were here earlier under a tourist visa, and then you left, got your F1, J1 visa and came back, you can't exclude those days. So you're only going to exclude the days that you were in the US under F or J. Now on page 2 of the form, you fill in nothing. Just print out the form and you will only sign it and then date it. And that's the physical form that you're going to mail in. Now, completing Form 8843 for dependents. Dependents complete the same parts as the primary visa holder. So they'll be completing Part 2. Everyone does the beginning on Part 1. and then either part 2 or part 3, same part as the primary visa holder. And you'll just write spouse of student attending Tulane University or dependent of student attending Tulane University. And then you'll use all the rest, same information as the primary visa holder. Now, Form 8843 has to be submitted for all dependents, regardless of age. So if you have a child under the age of 14, they have to file a Form 8843, but if they can't sign, then the child's parents signs the child's name, followed by the words by your signature, parent for minor child. An important thing to remember is that Form 8843 must be sent in a separate envelope for each dependent. The IRS will not recognize 4 Form 8843 sent in one envelope. If there's a parent, a wife, 2 children, then you're going to have to send 4 separate forms in 4 separate envelopes. Now, deadline and mailing information. You can find Form 8843 and the instructions at this link, or just search online for Form 8843 2022, and it'll take you to this same IRS website. You have plenty of time. If you had no income and this is all that you're filing, you only have to file it by June 15th, 2023. So you've got plenty of time to do it. You can go ahead and submit it now. That's not a problem. But the deadline is June 15th. You send it to the Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Services Center, Austin, Texas, with 7301-0215. And remember, each Form 8843 must be sent in a separate envelope. Now, if you have more questions, probably the most useful piece of information I'm going to give you right now is about this IRS Link and Learn site. I highly recommend it. Just go, you can either use this link for completing Form 8843, or once again, search online, IRS Link and Learn, completing Form 8843. It goes through the form line by line, explaining. It has example exercises with answers. It's a very, very useful website. You can also find some information at the OISS Tax Information webpage, which is linked here. Or send an email to oiss@tulane.edu. And this is the disclaimer that I'm required to read. OISS staff are not certified tax experts. Therefore, we cannot provide specific tax advice. All information provided in this presentation can be found on the IRS website, as well as in the instructions for Form 8843. Thank you.